Canada in the 1990s. During the 1990s, Canada had three prime ministers. Martin Brian Mulroney was Canada's prime minister up until June 1993. He was a progressive conservative born in Quebec. Due to constitutional failures and economic recession, he resigned in 1993. Kim Campbell took Mulroney's place in June 1993. She made history by becoming the first female Prime Minister of Canada. She was the leader of the Conservative Party. There were issues in her campaign and she suffered a major defeat, so in December 1993, she stepped down. To this day, she is still Canada's only female Prime Minister. Jacques Jean Chretien replaced Kim Campbell. He was the leader of the Liberal Party and was the Prime Minister for the majority of the 1990s. He led Canada to their first surplus in 30 years. He spent 3 terms as Canada's Prime Minister before he stepped down in 2003. At the beginning of the 1990s, Canada was in a severe recession, and by 1994 and 95, it looked as though Canada could be facing a serious debt problem. The Mexican peso crisis also seriously affected the Canadian dollar, making a debt problem more likely. By 1995, Canada had close to a $45 billion deficit. Thanks to the hard work of Prime Minister Chretien and the Canadian government, Canada's economy reached a balanced position in 1997 and a surplus by 1998. During the 90s, there were several advancements in science and technology. The internet was introduced, which made it easier to research and communicate. There was a whole new way of communication. Talking on a chat line and emailing became very popular, and by the end of the decade, almost everyone had an email address. Terms like chat room and homepage were born during the 90s. Along with email, people started purchasing cell phones more and more often. Also, in 1992, using a debit card began in Canada, and bank tellers were replaced with machines. Overall, the internet and technology in the 1990s made it easier for people to communicate and receive money or pay for things. There were also several medical advancements made in the 1990s. In 1993, Dr. Jude Poirier discovered that a polypoprotein is a genetic risk factor for Alzheimer's, and Dr. Michael Smith won a chemistry Nobel Prize for his work on site-directed mutagenesis, which allows researchers to introduce mutations to genes. In 1996, Dr. Brenda Galli made the first major development in retinoblastoma in 35 years by discovering a new therapy. Finally, in 1999, Dr. Ray Rajotte and Dr. James Shapiro conducted the first islet cell transplant for people with diabetes. There were several events that occurred in the 90s that changed Canada forever. One of these major events was that on April 1st, 1999, Nunavut was created due to the largest Aboriginal land claims agreement between the Canadian government and the native Inuit people. Nunavut separated from the Northwest Territories and became the newest Canadian territory. Canadian sports in the 1990s were very entertaining and successful. In 1992, the Toronto Blue Jays won their very first World Series.
Nixon bunts. Timlin on it. Throws to first. For the first time in history, the World Championship banner will fly north of the border. The Toronto Blue Jays are baseball's best in 1992.
They win the World Series once again in 1993. In 1994, Wayne Gretzky scores his record-breaking 802nd goal.
McSorley to Gretzky! Scores! He did it! He did it! The greatest goal scorer in National Hockey League history is Wayne Gretzky!
During the 1990s, Canada was involved in many conflicts and acts of peace. At the very beginning of the decade, there was a 78-day conflict between Aboriginals that ended in September 1990. They were also involved in the Gulf War from January 16, 1991 to February 28, 1991, by sending 800 military and 3 ships. Canadians also served as peacekeepers in Bosnia, Croatia, Somalia, Rwanda, Central Africa, and various other places trying to keep peace. During the 90s, there were several Canadians who made a name for themselves, especially in the music industry. The now very famous Shania Twain grew up in Timmins, Ontario as a singer-songwriter. She was first recognized for her song, Whose Beds Have Your Boots Been Under?, which reached number 11 on the top charts.
Whose bed have your boots been under? And whose heart did you steal, I wonder?
It was her song, Any Man of Mine, that made her extremely famous. In 1996, she won her first Grammy for Best Country Album, and in 1999, she won 2 more Grammys.
Any man of mine better walk the line.
Singer Celine Dion also dominated the charts in the 1990s. Fashion in the 1990s varied greatly from goth trends to very simple attire. Many girls wore floral dresses, leather, tank tops, or jeans, and many boys wore leather jackets, jeans, hoodies, or flannels.